Welcome to the Inspirational Living podcast, brought to you by the kind support of listeners like you. Learn how you can support the work we do by visiting livinghour.org/patron. Today's reading was edited and adapted from Nuggets of New Thought by William Walker Atkinson, published in 1902. There is something attractive to me about slang and the pat phrases that are passed along from one to another on the street. Many of these phrases condense in a few words certain practical truths that one could use as the basis for a sermon, an essay, or even a book. They are the practical experiences of the people, crystallized in a catchy phrase. For example, the phrase "forget it" seems to me to contain much practical common sense, and if people would put it into practice, there would be many more brighter faces, many more lighter hearts. What's the use, anyhow, of carrying around a long face or a heavy heart just because way back in the past something went wrong? Even if we went wrong ourselves, and most of us have, what's the use? Forget it. Of course, we won't forget the experiences of the past, and we don't want to. That's one of the things we are living for, gaining experience. When we have really learned a thing through experience, we never forget it. It is a part of us. But why bother about the memory of the pain, the mortification, the slip-up, the heartache, the wounded feelings, the misplaced confidence, the thing done in the wrong way, the chance we let slip by, the folly, the sin, the misery, the might-have-beens, and all the rest? Oh, what's the use? Forget it, I say. Just forget it. If one is to worry about all the things that went wrong in the past, all the things that didn't come out right, if we have to raise up these ghosts from the past, these phantoms of long ago, these musty, moth-eaten things, why, we won't have any time for the affairs of today. We will lose all the joy of the now, all the pleasure of life in the moment, all the interest in the things of today. So what's the use? Forget it. Just forget it. Some people are not happy unless they have some old faded sorrow hugged to their bosoms, and they feel guilty if they happen to smile and forget the old thing, even for a moment. Oh, how they gloat over their own unhappiness, how they enjoy reliving the pains and sorrows, mistakes and ignorance of years gone by, how they love to hold the badger to their sides and let it eat out their heart. These people are really happy in their unhappiness, and life would not be worth living if they were deprived of their pet sorrows. Of course, if these people were really happy because they are unhappy, I would have no objection. Every man or woman has the right to pursue happiness in his or her own way, and I suppose that is as good a way as any other, and I should not find fault if somebody else's way is different from mine. But doesn't it seem like a pity to see people wasting their time, energy, thoughts, and life on these old sorrows? If they must think of the past, why not think of the bright things that came into their lives instead of the dark ones? Think of the moments of happiness, not of the moments of sorrow. Don't make a tomb of your mind. Don't let a particular painful experience poison your present life. Don't do it. Don't do it. What's the use? Forget it. Every bit of pain that has happened to you has brought its experience to you. You are better, wiser, and broader for it. Look at it in that way, and you will cease to mourn and wail and wring your hands over the fact that in the past you, quote, have done those things which you ought not to have done, and have left undone those things which you ought to have done. Nonsense. You have gained the experience and know better now. If you were placed back in the same old position, and lacked the experience that you have gained by just such things, you would do the same old thing over again, and in the same old way. You couldn't help it, because you would be the same old person. What you would like to do would be to be placed back in the same position and face the same old temptation or problem, taking with you the experience you have gained by your former mistake. You want the cake and the penny at the same time. You want the experience without the pain. Oh yes, you do. That's just what you want. I've been through it myself and know all about it. You've gained the experience. Be satisfied. Someday you'll need that experience, and we'll be glad you have it, and we'll see that it was worth all you've paid for it. No, you say? You don't see it that way? Well, maybe you haven't had enough of it, haven't learned your lesson yet. If that is the case, one of these days life will drop you back into the pot until you're well done. Life is not satisfied with underdone people. When we carry old things around with us, we generally get ourselves into a mental attitude that draws other things of the same sort to us. Misery loves company, and a miserable thought also likes companionship, and almost always manages to attract some other miserable thing to it, to keep it from being lonesome. The only way to get rid of a thought of this kind is to forget it. So, if you have some pet thing that is gnawing out your vitals, is corroding your heart, is poisoning your mind, take it out and look at it for the last time. Give it a last long lingering gaze. Kiss it goodbye. Weep over it if you like, for this is the last you will see of it. Then throw open the window of your mind and pitch it out into the outer darkness. Forget it. Now that that's done, get busy with your work. The work of each day would be a pleasure if we would refrain from attempting at the same time the work of tomorrow. The work of today is easily performed, notwithstanding the fact that we spoiled the pleasure of yesterday by fretting about the tasks of the coming day. The cares of today do not seem half so terrible as they appeared viewed from the distance of yesterday. Nor do we suffer nearly as much from today's burdens as we did yesterday in bearing these burdens in anticipation. Today is comparatively easy for us, but oh, tomorrow, there's the trouble. Tomorrow. The past is gone, and its sorrows, cares, troubles, misfortunes, and work do not seem so terrible viewed from this distance. The misfortunes of the past are now often known as blessings in disguise. Today is here, and we seem to be getting along fairly well, except fearing the dawn of tomorrow. But tomorrow, oh mysterious tomorrow, who knows what terrible monsters are lurking in its gloomy recesses? What frightful cares are slumbering there? What dreadful shapes are there crouching, with glowering eyes, awaiting our coming? No frightful tale of childhood begins to compare in horror with this fantasy of maturity. Tomorrow. Yesterday with all its troubles, today with its pressing tasks, scare us not. But tomorrow? Oh, tell us of the morrow. Who knows what the day may bring forth? Tell us how to meet the terrors of tomorrow. Well, it's an easy task, my friends. The way to meet the terrors of tomorrow is to wait until tomorrow. The cares of tomorrow. It would be laughable if it were not so pitiful. Tomorrow's cares may come, will come, must come. But what of tomorrow's opportunities, tomorrow's strength, tomorrow's chances, circumstances, helpers? Don't you know that the supply of good things does not cease with the close of today? Don't you know that in the womb of the future sleep opportunities intended for your use when the time comes? Don't you know that an earnest, confident expectation of the good things to come will cause these good things to grow for your use in the future? Well, it is so. They'll grow and grow and grow, and then when you need them, you will find them ripe and ready to pick. Water them with faith, surround them with the rich soil of hope. Let them receive the full rays of the sun of love, and the nourishing fruit of opportunity will be your reward tomorrow. Have you ever shivered with dread at the thought of what would happen if the sun should not rise tomorrow? Have you ever doubted that the grass would grow and the trees take on the leaves next spring? Have you ever feared that perhaps the summer would not come? No, of course not. These things have always happened, and you have sufficient faith to know that they will occur again. However, you have been fearing that opportunities, chances, circumstances may not be present tomorrow. O ye of little faith! Do you not know that this is no world of chance? Do you not know that you are working under the operations of a great law, and that these things are as much amenable to that law as are the seasons, the crops, the motion of the earth, the planets, and the universe? The law which regulates the motion of the millions of worlds, and whose jurisdiction extends over space, also guides the tiny living organism too small to be seen through our strongest microscope. The sparrow's fall comes under the law, as well as the building of the magnetic series of solar systems. And yet we fear tomorrow. However, I do not fear the morrow, because I am doing well the work that the law has placed before me to do, that which lies nearest to my hand today. I believe in work, good work, honest work, cheerful work, hopeful work, confident work. I believe in the joy of work, the pleasure of creating, and I believe that they who do their best work one day at a time, working with faith, hope, and confidence in the morrow, with fear eliminated from their mind and replaced with courage, will never find their cupboard empty, nor will their children want for bread. And furthermore, I believe that tomorrow is what we make it by our thoughts today. I believe that we are sowing thought seeds today, which will grow up overnight and bear fruit tomorrow. I believe that thought takes form in action, and that we are and will be just what we think ourselves into being. I believe that our minds and bodies are constantly being molded by our thoughts, and that the measure of a person's success is determined by the character of their thoughts. And I believe that when we throw off the incubus of fear, the frightful vision of the night will vanish, and opening our eyes in the place of the monster, we will see the fair form and smiling face of a radiant creature, who, bending over us with loving eyes, will softly whisper, "I am tomorrow." The Inspirational Living Podcast is a production of The Living Hour. Get the best of our podcast in book form by visiting the website inspirationallifelessons.com. Thanks for listening. I look forward to talking with you next time. Welcome to the Inspirational Living Podcast, brought to you in part by Book of Zen, makers of inspirational fashion and gift ideas. Visit them online at bookofzen.com. Today's podcast has been edited and adapted from The Power of Concentration by William Walker Atkinson, published in 1918. Everyone has two natures. One wants us to advance, and the other wants to pull us back. The one that we cultivate and concentrate on decides what we are at the end. Both natures are trying to gain control. This alone decides the issue. A person, by one supreme effort of the will, may change their whole career and almost accomplish miracles. You may be that person. You can be, if you will to be, for will can find a way or make one. I could easily fill a book of cases where people who were plodding along in a matter-of-fact way all at once were aroused and, as if awakening from a slumber, developed the possibilities within them, and from that time on were different persons. You alone can decide when the turning point will come. It is a matter of choice whether we allow our higher self to control us, or whether we will be controlled by the brute within us. No one has to do anything that they do not want to do. You are therefore the director of your life, if you will to be. What we are to do is the result of our training. We are like putty and can be completely controlled by our willpower. Habit is a matter of acquirement. You may have heard people say that someone comes by this or that skill naturally, a chip off the old block, meaning that they are only doing what one of their parents did. This is quite often the case, but there is no reason for it, for a person can break a habit just the moment that they master the I will. You might have been a good-for-nothing all your life up to this very minute, but from this time on, you can begin to amount to something. Even old people have suddenly changed and accomplished wonders. I lost my opportunity, you might be thinking. And that may be true, but by sheer force of will, you can find a way to bring yourself another opportunity. There is no truth in the saying that opportunity knocks at our door but once in a lifetime. The fact is, opportunity never seeks us. We must seek it. What usually turns out to be one person's opportunity was another person's loss. In this day, one person's brain is matched against another's. It is often the quickness of brain action that determines the result. One person thinks, "I will do it." But while they procrastinate, the other goes ahead and does the work. They both had the same opportunity, but one will complain of their lost chance. Every opportunity lost should teach you a lesson, and it will, if you are seeking the path that leads to success. Many people read good books, but say they do not get much good out of them. They do not realize that all any book or lesson can do is to awaken them to their possibilities, to stimulate them to use their willpower. You may teach a person from now until doomsday, but that person will only know what they learn themselves. In other words, you can lead them to the fountain, but you can't make them drink. One of the most beneficial practices I know of is that of looking for the good in everyone and everything, for there is good in all things. We encourage a person by seeing their good qualities, and we also help ourselves by looking for them. We gain their good wishes, a most valuable asset sometimes. We get back what we give out. The time comes when most all of us need encouragement, need buoying up. So form the habit of encouraging others, and you will find it a wonderful tonic for both those encouraged and yourself, for you will get back encouraging and uplifting thoughts. Life furnishes us the opportunity to improve, but whether we do it or not depends upon how near we live up to what is expected of us. The first of each month you should sit down and examine the progress you have made. If you have not come up to your expectations, you should discover the reason, and by extra exertion measure up to what is demanded next time. Every time that we fall behind what we plan to do, we lose just so much, for that time is gone forever. We may find a reason for doing it, but most excuses are poor substitutes for action. Most things are possible. Ours may be a hard task, but the harder the task, the greater the reward. It is the difficult things that really develop us. Anything that requires only a small effort utilizes very few of our faculties and yields a scant harvest of achievement. So do not shrink from a hard task, for to accomplish one of these will often bring us more good than a dozen lesser triumphs. I know that every person that is willing to pay the price can be a success. The price is not in money, but in effort. The first essential quality for success is the desire to do, to be something. The next thing is to learn how to do it. The next to carry it into execution. The individual that is best able to accomplish anything is the one with a broad mind, the one who has acquired knowledge that may be foreign to a particular case, but is nevertheless of some value in all cases. So the person that wants to be successful must acquire all the knowledge that they can. They must be well versed not only in one branch of their profession, but in every part of it. Such an individual achieves success. The secret of success is to try always to improve yourself, no matter where you are or what your position. Learn all you can. Don't see how little you can do, but how much you can do. Such a person will always be in demand, for they establish the reputation of being a hustler. There is always room for them, because successful firms never let a hustler leave their employment if they can help it. The individual that reaches the top is the gritty, plucky, hard worker, and never the timid, uncertain, slow worker. An untried professional is seldom put in a position of responsibility and power. The person selected is one that has done something, achieved results in some line, or taken the lead in their department. They are placed there because of their reputation of putting vigor and virility into their efforts, and because they have previously shown that they have pluck and determination. The person that is chosen at the crucial time is not usually a genius. They do not possess any more talent than others, but they have learned that results can only be produced by untiring, concentrated effort, that miracles in business do not just happen. They know that the only way success happens is by sticking to a proposition and seeing it through. That is the only secret of why some succeed and others fail. The successful worker gets used to seeing things accomplished and always feels sure of success. The person that is a failure gets used to seeing failure, expects it, and attracts it to themselves. It is my opinion that with the right kind of training, every person can be a success. It is really a shame that so many men and women, rich in ability and talent, are allowed to go to waste, so to speak. Someday I hope to see a millionaire philanthropist start a school for the training of, quote, failures. I am sure they could not put their money to better use. In a year's time, the science of practical psychology could do wonders for these students who have lost their grip on themselves, who, through some sorrow or misfortune, have become discouraged. At first, all they need is a little help to get them back on their feet, but usually they get a knock downwards instead. The result is that their latent powers never develop, and both they and the world are the losers. I trust that in the near future someone will heed the opportunity of using some of their millions in arousing those who have begun to falter. All they need to be shown is that there is within them an omnipotent source that is ready to aid them, providing they will make use of it. Their minds only have to be turned from despair to hope to make them regain their hold. When a person loses their grip today, they must win their redemption by their own will. They often will get little encouragement or inspiring advice from those around them. They must usually regain the right road alone. Today we must conquer our weakening tendencies alone. Don't expect anyone to help you. Just take one big brace, make firm resolutions, and resolve to conquer your weaknesses and vices. Really, none can do this for you. They can encourage you, that is all. I can think of nothing but lack of health that should interfere with anyone becoming successful. There is no other handicap that you should not be able to overcome. To overcome a handicap, all that is necessary to do is to use more determination and grit and will. The individual with grit and will may be poor today and wealthy in a few years. Willpower is a better asset than money. Will carry you over chasms of failure, if you but give it a chance. The people who have risen to the highest positions have usually had to gain their victories against big odds. Think of the hardships many of our inventors have gone through before they became a success. Usually they have been very much misunderstood by relatives and friends. Very often they did not have the bare necessities of life, yet by sheer determination and resolute courage, they managed to exist somehow until they perfected their inventions, which afterwards greatly helped in bettering the conditions of others. Everyone really wants to do something, but there are few that will put forward the needed effort to make the necessary sacrifice to secure it. There is only one way to accomplish anything, and that is to go ahead and to do it. A person may accomplish almost anything today if they just set their heart on doing it and lets nothing interfere with their progress. Obstacles are quickly overcome by the person that sets out to accomplish their heart's desire. The bigger the individual, the smaller the obstacles appear. The smaller the individual, the greater the obstacles appear. Always look at the advantage you gain by overcoming obstacles, and it will give you the needed courage for their conquest. Do not expect that you will always have easy sailing. Parts of your journey are likely to be rough. Don't let the rough places put you out of commission. Keep on with the journey. Just the way you weather the storm shows what material you are made of. Never sit down and complain of the rough places, but think how nice the pleasant stretches were. View with delight the smooth plains that are in front of you. Think of it as a mere incident that has to be overcome before you can reach your goal. The Inspirational Living podcast is a production of The Living Hour. For free transcripts of our podcast, please go to livinghour.org. If you enjoy our podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which will ensure that we can continue our podcast for years to come. To become a patron, please visit patreon.com. That's patreon.com. Simply do a quick search for the Inspirational Living Podcast at patreon.com to find our Patreon page and learn more, including the free gifts we offer to every patron. Subscribe to our free podcast today at the iTunes Store, or at Google Play, or at Stitcher.com. Thank you for listening. We look forward to being with you next time. Welcome to the Inspirational Living Podcast. Our holiday break is almost over, so today will be the last rebroadcast from the Patron series Our Sunday Talks. I'll be delivering a brand new podcast on Thursday. Coming up on Monday, our new daily video series 30 Seconds to a Beautiful Life will begin. Get access to this series by becoming our patron for as little as $3 a month. Learn more at livinghour.org/patron. Today's reading was edited and adapted from Nuggets of New Thought by William Walker Atkinson, published in 1902. There is plenty of sunshine in life if you only look for it, and there is plenty of shadow in life if you only look for it. But in the things that seem all shadow to others, you will find the sunshine if you but train yourself to always look for it. It is true that what may seem bright sunshine to you, others will find nothing but shade, for they are afflicted with a mental cataract that shuts out all the rays of the sunshine of life. But when you learn to love the sunshine and look forward to seeing it always, you seem to draw it to you. The law of attraction brings to you your share of the sunshine with which the world is plentifully supplied. But if you fall into the habit of looking for and expecting the shadow will always be found. It is astonishing what a change of mental attitude will make. Change your mental attitude, and the whole world seems to change. It is like taking off the dark glasses that have caused the world to seem gloomy, and seeing the brightness and colors of the world. Many of you have been making dark dungeons of your minds. You have steadily shut out the sun, and your minds have become musty, damp, and mildewed. Across the floor crawl noxious creatures. The slimy form of fear drags itself slowly along, leaving its track behind. The hideous shape of jealousy eyes you from one corner, a creature of darkness. The venomous reptile hate shows its fangs. The vampire worry flits across the chamber. Fearful shapes are there glowering in the darkness. Frightful forms crouch in corners and recesses. All is gloom, darkness, horror, a fit breeding place for the foul creatures who fear the light, a fit nursery for monsters. Look within the dark chambers of your mind. See what it really is. See what it generates. Look within. Look within. Ah, do you see it at last? No wonder you shriek with terror. No wonder you turn away with horror. No, no, do not turn away. Look and see yourself as you are. You need the lesson. Now that you see what you have been carrying around with you and are sickened at the sight, start to work to remedy the evil. Throw wide open the doors. Throw open the windows of the soul. Ah yes, never fear. There is plenty of sunshine in the universe. Plenty for all of you. There is an infinite supply. Draw it to you. Take it freely. It is there for you. It is your own, your very own. It is as free as the air and the material sunshine. There is no tariff on it. It is not controlled by any trust or combine. It is not adulterated. It is everywhere, everywhere. Here is life and happiness for you. Here is peace for you. Here is joy for you. Open wide your windows. Open wide your doors. I hear you say that you cannot dispel the gloom with which you are surrounded. Nonsense. Do you not know that darkness is not a positive thing? It is the essence of negation. It is not a real thing at all. It is merely the absence of light. And here you have been for all these years, believing that the darkness was a real thing that you could not get rid of. Just stop for a moment and think. If a room in your house is dark and gloomy, do you hire a man to shovel out the darkness? Do you attempt to do it yourself in your desire for light? No, of course you don't. You just raise the shades and throw open the shutters, and the sunshine pours in, and lo, the darkness is vanished. So it is with the gloom of the soul, the darkness of the mind. It is a waste of energy to attempt to dig away the darkness, to cast out the shadows. You'll never get light in that way. All that you need to do is to recognize the advantage of light, the fact that light is to be had, that there is plenty of it anxiously waiting to be let in. Then all that you need to do is to let a little sunshine in. Don't be afraid. You're living in your own home. This universe was built for you to inhabit, to occupy, to enjoy. Do not feel strange. Make yourself at home. The wonderful laws of nature, those which have been discovered and those which remain to be discovered, are all laws for your use. That is, when you grow large enough to understand how to make use of them. Did you think you were here by chance, or that you were an alien? If so, learn better. You are to the manner born. You are the air. Everything around the place is for your use when you grow up. No one can dispossess you. No one can put you out. You are at home. Do you long for another home? Do you fret and chafe at the trials and troubles of this world, and imagine that somewhere else things will be better? Well, they'll never be better for you until you have met and conquered the trials and troubles of this place. You are just where you belong. You are surrounded with just the things you need. You are getting just what you deserve. And until you learn the truth of this, you will have the same surroundings, the same environments. And then when you learn that the things around you are all right, that you are being treated justly, that you are getting just what you have attracted and are attracting to yourself, then you will be ready for the next step in the journey. And you will have new surroundings and new environments, new tasks, new lessons, new pleasures. I hear some of you talking about death. You seem to think that you will be another order of being as soon as you take your last breath upon earth. You talk about being a spirit by and by. Do I believe this? Of course I believe it. I know it. But I also know something else, and that is that you are a spirit now, just as much as you will be in another world. Did you think that some wonderful essence was going to grow from you, and that essence would be what you call a spirit? Nonsense. You are the spirit. And the not you part which will be discarded never was you. The you which says I am is the real thing, the real self, and the rest of you is but tools and instruments which you are using. Why can't you see this? You talk about my soul, my spirit, and so on. Why, the thing which is thinking and speaking, you, is the soul and spirit of which you are talking. You talk as if the physical part of you, which is changing continually, was you. You are like the boy with the old knife. He was continually having the knife repaired. He had had 7 new blades and 3 new handles put on it, and yet it was the same old knife. Why, you could step right out of your body and it would be the same old you. You could discard your body just as you do your clothes, and yet you would be the same individual. What's the use in being afraid? Nobody can hurt the real you. You cannot be wiped out of existence. If a single spirit atom should be destroyed, the entire structure would smash up. You cannot be banished from the universe, for there is nowhere else to put you. You cannot get outside of the universe, for there is no outside. There is no place for you outside of everywhere. You also talk about time and eternity. Why, you're in eternity right now. You are right in it this moment. It is always today. Tomorrow never comes. And you are right at home in the universe, and always will be. You are always there, for there is nowhere else to go. So what's the use in being afraid? Who's going to hurt you? They can't kill you. They can't put you out of existence. They cannot expel you from the universe. So what are they going to do about it anyhow? And after all, who are they? You talk as if there were outside forces and influences antagonistic to you. Outside of what? No matter what beings of earth or air there may be, they are creatures like yourself. They are all a part of the whole thing, all made of the same material, all come from the hand of the same maker. You are all cut from the same piece of goods. So make yourself at home. Take a look around you and see what a nice bit of the universe you have to live in. Some of your family have been trying to occupy the whole house instead of only their share of it. But those things are gradually working out, and all will be better within a comparatively short time. This is going to be a better world to live in when we take time to think a little, and you'll be around to enjoy it when it comes. Never fear. You cannot get away, even if you want to. And what's the use of waiting for tomorrow? There's lots of things in which you can find happiness today, if you will only stop worrying about tomorrow. The little child knows more about enjoying life than you do. The little child feels at home anywhere and starts in to enjoy it and get the most out of it. You are at home here, just as much at home as is the fish in the sea, the bird in the air. Realize this and make the most out of it. Stop being afraid. Stop fretting. Stop worrying. Realize that yesterday, today, and tomorrow, you are here in the universe. It's a good universe, and it grows better as we grow in wisdom to take advantage of its goodness. And it is not yet sun up here. Great things are before us, and you will see them and take part in them. Make yourself at home, for you are going to be around here for some time. The Inspirational Living podcast is a production of The Living Hour and brought to you by the generous financial support of our patrons. Become our patron for as little as $3 a month to gain access to free transcripts and the series Our Sunday Talks, which features thought-provoking readings on spirituality and spiritual growth. Thanks for listening. I look forward to talking with you next time. Welcome to the Inspirational Living podcast, brought to you in part by Book of Zen, makers of wearable inspiration for a better world. Today's podcast has been edited and adapted from Thought Force in Business and Everyday Life by William Walker Atkinson, published in 1901. The individual who practices concentration in their daily life shuts out distracting impressions and gives their best thought force to the task at hand, and does better work by reason thereof, whether that person be an architect, office worker, salesperson, poet, painter, or banker. Every person who has succeeded in life has developed the art of concentration. They may not realize it, but they have just the same. And more, any person who will develop the art of concentration will be successful. The individual who can concentrate has a sure remedy for the blues. How so? Why, just by shutting off the unpleasant thoughts and concentrating on a brighter subject. Thousands of people have found this plan a specific remedy for the blues, discouragement, worry, fear, and all the rest. Try it, and you will find that life will appear entirely different to you. Try it, and you will begin to feel the thrill of life again, and will thank God that you are alive, instead of cursing the day when you were born. You will do your work better. You will feel better. You will be better. Is it not worth trying it out? Take up the exercises I am about to share with you, and go over them until you can do anything whatsoever without your thoughts wandering. Anyone can concentrate upon an agreeable task, but just give them an unpleasant or monotonous job, and you will find that their thoughts will wander away in spite of themselves. That is, until they learn to concentrate by an effort of will. That is the true test. The ability to successfully concentrate upon an unpleasant, unattractive, or monotonous task. When you have overcome these troubles, you will know that you have broken the backbone of wasted effort and motion. By concentration, you will be able to focus your attention, thought, and energy upon a given thing, thereby obtaining the best possible results. The rays of the sun, when focused upon an object by means of a magnifying glass, produce a heat many times greater than the original direct sunlight. So it is with attention. Scatter it and you get but ordinary results, but focus it upon the thing to be done, and you obtain a wonderful amount of energy. The concentrating professional focuses their attention and thought force upon an object, and the result is that their every action, voluntary and involuntary, is in the direction of the attainment of that object. Every individual can reach their goal if only they want it hard enough. If your energies are focused upon one thing, to the exclusion of everything else, the force so generated must bring about the result. The moral of all this is, whatsoever you do, do it with all your might. Do it in earnest. Do one thing at a time, and do it well. I will now give you a few exercises, the practice of which will enable you to develop the power of concentration. But first, I would like to again remind you that the underlying principle of concentration is the focusing of the attention upon a certain thought or action. Any exercise which will strengthen the faculty of suppressing non-essential thoughts will be of value. The exercises I'm about to share are merely being furnished as a few suggestions. The first requisite of concentration is the ability to shut out external thoughts, sounds, and sights, to conquer inattention, to obtain perfect control over the body and mind. The body must be brought under the direct control of the mind, and the mind under the direct control of the will. The will is strong enough, but the mind needs strengthening by being brought under the direct influence of the will. The mind, strengthened by the impulse of the will, becomes a much more powerful projector of your thought vibrations than otherwise, and the vibrations have much greater force and effect. In these exercises, we will begin with training the body to readily obey the commands of the mind. The first exercise, and one which must be mastered before the succeeding exercises are undertaken, involves the control of muscular movements. This, at first sight, may appear very simple, but a few experiments will convince you that it is not so easy as it seems. We begin this exercise by sitting absolutely still. This is no easy task. It will at first tax your powers of concentration to refrain from involuntary muscular movements, but by a little practice you will be able to sit still, without a movement of the muscles, for 15 minutes or more. The best plan is to place yourself in a chair, assuming a comfortable position. Then relax all over, and endeavor to remain perfectly quiescent for a period of 5 minutes. Continue this exercise until you can accomplish it with ease, and then increase the time to 10 minutes. After you have mastered the 10 minutes exercise, increase the time to 15 minutes, which is about as far as you need to pursue this exercise. You should not tire yourself with this or any of our other exercises. The better plan is to practice a little at a time, but as often as possible. Bear in mind that you must not sit in a rigid position. There must be no strain on the muscles. You must relax completely. This plan of relaxing will prove valuable to you when you wish to get a good rest after a fatiguing physical effort. It is an ideal rest cure, and may be taken either sitting in a chair or lying down on a couch or bed. Now for the next exercise. Sit erect in your chair, with your head up and your chin out and shoulders thrown back. Raise your right arm until it is level with your shoulder, pointing to the right. Turn your head and fix your gaze on your hand, and hold the arm perfectly steady for 1 minute. Repeat with the left arm. When you are able to perform this feat perfectly, increase the time to 2 minutes, then to 3, and so on until you are able to maintain the position for 5 minutes. The palm of the hand should be turned downward, this being the easiest position. By keeping the eyes fixed on the tips of the fingers, you will be able to see whether you are holding your arm perfectly steady. Now the next exercise. Fill a wine glass full of water, and taking the glass between the fingers, extend the right arm directly in front of you. Fix your eyes upon the glass, and endeavor to hold your arm so steady that no quiver will be noticeable. Commence with 1-minute exercises, and increase until the 5-minute limit is reached. Alternate right and left arms. In your everyday life, endeavor to avoid tense, strained conditions of the muscles when you should be at ease. Endeavor to acquire a self-poised attitude and demeanor. Cultivate an easy, self-possessed manner in preference to a nervous, strained, over-anxious appearance. Mental exercise will help you to acquire the proper carriage and demeanor. Stop tapping your fingers on the table or chair. Such actions indicate a lack of self-control. Don't tap on the floor with your foot, nor swing your feet backward or forward while talking or sitting. Don't bite your nails, nor chew your lips or cheek. Don't wiggle your tongue around in your mouth whilst reading or studying or writing. Don't wink or blink your eyes. Get rid of any habit of twitching or jerking of any part of the body which may have become second nature to you. You can stop it easily by carrying the thought and practicing concentration. Train yourself to bear with equanimity and composure noises which have been startling you heretofore, such as the banging of a suddenly closed door, the dropping of a book or another object, etc. In other words, keep yourself well in hand. The previous exercises will be of great assistance to you in getting yourself just where you want to be. Now let us move on to another set of exercises which are designed to enable you to bring your voluntary muscular movements under the direct control of your will. In other words, to train your mental faculties producing these voluntary muscular movements. Begin the first exercise by sitting in front of a table. Place your hands upon the table, your fists clenched and lying with the backs of the hands on the table, the thumb being doubled over the fingers. Fix your gaze upon one of your fists for a while, and then slowly extend your thumb and fingers. Then reverse the process, closing first the little finger, and continuing the closing until the fist is again in its original position, with the thumb closed over the fingers. Repeat with the other hand. Continue this exercise 5 times at a sitting, and then increase it to 10 times. This exercise will likely make you tired, but you must persevere, as it is vital to the training of your attention by directing it to trivial and monotonous exercises. In addition, this exercise will give you direct control over all of your muscular movements. You will soon feel the benefit accruing from this simple and apparently unimportant exercise. Do not fail to keep your attention closely focused upon the closing and unclosing of your fingers. That is the main point. If you neglect it, you lose the entire benefit of the exercise. Now let us move on to the next exercise, which is nothing more or less than the old trick of twirling or twiddling your thumbs. Place the fingers of your 2 hands together so that they are intersecting and leaving the thumbs free. Then slowly twirl the thumbs one over the other with a circular motion. Be sure to keep your attention firmly fixed upon the ends of your thumbs. The next exercise is to place your right hand on your knee, the fingers and thumb closed, with the exception of the first finger, which must be pointed out in front of you. Then move the finger slowly from side to side, keeping your attention firmly fixed upon the end of your finger. All of these exercises may be extended indefinitely, and you may exercise your own ingenuity in supplying additional ones. The main idea is that the exercise shall consist of some trivial, familiar muscular movement, and that the attention must be kept firmly fixed upon the moving part of the body. Your attention will revolt at the slavery enforced upon it, and will endeavor in every possible way to escape its thraldom. This is where the training comes in, and you must insist that your attention does its work from beginning to end, and not wander away to more congenial scenes or occupations. Think of yourself as a strict schoolmaster, and of your attention as a playful, fun-loving student who tires of looking at their book and wishes to steal sly glances out of the window and door at the more attractive sights on the outside. Your business is to keep the student at their book, knowing that it will be better for them in the long run, although they cannot see it just that way now. Before long, you will notice that you have much better control over your muscular movements, carriage, and demeanor, and you will also observe an increased power of attention and concentration in your everyday affairs, which will be of considerable advantage to you. The last exercise that I'm going to share with you is intended to aid you in concentrating your attention upon some material object not connected with yourself. Take some uninteresting object, such as a pencil, and concentrate your attention upon it for 5 minutes. Look at it intently, every part of it. Turn it over, consider it. Think of its uses, its objects, of the materials of which it is made, the process of manufacturing, etc. Think of nothing else but the pencil. Imagine that your chief object in life is the study of that pencil. Imagine that there exists nothing else in the world but you and the pencil. Do not let your attention get away from the pencil, but keep it down to its work. You will realize what a rebellious creature your attention is when you try this exercise, but don't let it get the upper hand of you. When you have conquered your rebellious attention, you will have achieved a greater victory than that which you now realize. Many a time in your life ahead, when you need the closest attention upon some matter before you, you will be thankful for having mastered this exercise. This particular exercise can be varied each day, always choosing some uninteresting and familiar object upon which to concentrate your attention. Don't select an interesting object, for it requires no effort to concentrate upon that. You need something that will seem like work to the attention. The less interesting the object, the more the work, and the better the exercise. The trouble with this exercise is that you will soon run out of material, as the continued concentration of the attention upon uninteresting objects will, in the end, cause the attention in self-defense to take an interest in the things upon which it concentrates. However, when you have reached this stage, you will have but little further need of this exercise, as you then will be able to powerfully concentrate your attention upon anything or anybody. The Inspirational Living podcast is a production of livinghour.org. If you enjoy our podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which will ensure that we can continue our podcast for years to come. To become a patron, please visit patreon.com. That's patreon.com. Simply do a quick search for the Inspirational Living Podcast at patreon.com to find our Patreon page and learn more, including the free gifts we offer to every patron. Subscribe to our free podcast today at the iTunes Store or at Stitcher.com. For free transcripts of our podcast, please visit us online at podcast.livinghour.org. Thank you for listening. We look forward to being with you next time. Welcome to the Inspirational Living Podcast, brought to you in part by Book of Zen, makers of inspirational fashion and gift ideas. Visit them online at bookofzen.com. Today's podcast has been edited and adapted from Memory, How to Develop, Train, and Use It by William Walker Atkinson, published in 1919. Before the memory can be stored with sight impressions, before the mind can recollect or remember such impressions, the eye must be used under the direction of our attention. We think that we see things when we look at them, but in reality we see but few things, in the sense of registering clear and distinct impressions of them upon the tablets of our conscious mind. We look at them rather than see them. In other words, we see without truly seeing. The way to train the mind to receive clear sight impressions, and therefore to retain them in the memory, is simply to concentrate the will and attention upon objects of sight, endeavoring to see them plainly and distinctly, and then to practice recalling the details of the object some time afterward. It is astonishing how rapidly one may improve in this respect by a little practice, and it is amazing how great a degree of proficiency one may attain in a short time. The famous French magician Houdin, from whom Harry Houdini took his name, cultivated his memory of sight impressions by following a simple plan. He started to practice by observing a number of small objects in a Paris shop window, while rapidly walking past the window. He followed this by noting down on paper the things that he saw and remembered. At first, he could remember but 2 or 3 articles in the window. Then he began to see and remember more, and so on, each day adding to his power of perception and memory, until finally he was able to see and remember nearly every small article in a large shop window, after bestowing but a single glance upon it. Others have found this plan an excellent one, and have developed their power of perception greatly, and at the same time cultivated an amazingly retentive memory of objects thus seen. It is all a matter of use and practice. The experiment of Houdin may be varied infinitely, with excellent results. For example, in India, some parents train their children along these lines by playing the sight game with them. This game is played by exposing to the sight of the children a number of small objects, at which they gaze intently, and which are then withdrawn from their sight. The children then try to outdo each other in writing down the names of the objects which they have seen. The number of objects is small to begin with, but is increased each day until an astonishing number are perceived and remembered. Many teachers have followed plans similar to this. For example, you can take a number of small articles and train the students to see and remember them, the process being gradually made more and more difficult. Or you could make a number of dots on a whiteboard and then erase them before the students can count them in the ordinary way. The children then try to count their mental impressions, and before long they can correctly name the number of dots up to 10 or more with ease. It is the old story of attention following the interest, and memory following the attention. An expert bridge player will see and remember every card played in a game, and just who played it. An expert chess or checker player will see and remember the previous moves in the game, and can relate them afterward. And, at the risk of sounding sexist, many women will go shopping and see and remember hundreds of things that a man would never have seen, much less remembered. Keep in mind that whatever can be done in this direction by means of attention, inspired by interest, may be duplicated by attention directed by will. In other words, the desire to accomplish the task adds and creates an artificial interest just as effective as the natural feeling. And as you progress, the interest in the game or task will add new interest, and you will be able to duplicate any of the feats mentioned previously. It is all a matter of attention, interest, natural or induced, and practice. Begin with a set of dominoes if you like, and try to remember the spots on one of them rapidly glanced at, then 2, then 3. By increasing the number gradually, you will attain a power of perception and a memory of sight impressions that will appear almost marvelous. And not only will you begin to remember dominoes, but you will also be able to perceive and remember thousands of little details of interest in everything that have heretofore escaped your notice. The principle is very simple, but the results that may be obtained by practice are wonderful. The trouble with most of us is that we have been looking without seeing, gazing but not observing. The objects around you have been out of your mental focus. If you will but change your mental focus by means of will and attention, you will be able to cure yourself of the careless methods of seeing and observing that have been hindrances to your success. We have been blaming forgetfulness on our memories, but the fault is with our perception. How can the memory remember when it is not given anything in the way of clear impressions? We have been like young infants in this matter. Now it is time for you to begin to sit up and take notice, no matter how old you may be. The whole thing in a nutshell is this. In order to remember the things that pass before your sight, you must begin to see with your mind instead of with your retina. Let the impression get beyond your retina and into your mind. If you will do this, you will find that memory will do the rest. Now let us move on to the art of listening. The sense of hearing is one of the highest of the senses or channels whereby we receive impressions from the outside world. In fact, it ranks almost as high as the sense of sight. In the sense of taste, touch, and smell, there is a direct contact between the recipient and the particles of the object sensed, while in the sense of sight and the sense of hearing, The impression is received through the medium of waves in the ether, in the case of sight, or waves in the air, in the sense of hearing. Just as it is true that it is the mind and not the eye that really sees, so it is true that it is the mind and not the ear that really hears. Many sounds reach the ear that are not registered by the mind. We pass along a crowded street, the waves of many sounds reaching the nerves of the ear, and yet the mind accepts the sounds of but few things, particularly when the novelty of the sounds has passed away. To acquire the faculty of correct hearing and correct memory of things heard, the mental faculty of hearing must be exercised, trained, and developed. Research has shown that great differences exist among individuals with regard to the acuteness of their sense of hearing, and some possess it in greater perfection in certain directions than in others. One whose hearing is good for sound in general may yet have but little ear for musical tones, and, on the other hand, one with a good ear for music may yet be deficient as regards hearing in general. As with seeing properly, the secret of this is to be found in the degree of interest and attention bestowed upon the particular thing giving forth the sound. It is a fact that the mind will hear the faintest sounds from things in which its interest and attention is centered, while at the same time ignoring things in which there is no interest and to which the attention is not turned. A musician will note the slightest discord occurring in a concert in which there are a great number of instruments being played, and in which there is a great volume of sound reaching the ear, while other sounds may be unheard. The foreman in a machine shop, in the same manner, detects the little strange noise that informs him that something is amiss, and he turns off the power at once. A skilled physician will detect the faint sounds denoting respiratory trouble or a heart murmur in the patient. And yet these very people who are able to detect the faint differences in the sounds just mentioned are often known as poor hearers in other things. Why? Simply because they hear only that in which they are interested, and to which their attention has been directed. That is the whole secret, and in it is also to be found the secret of training the ear to listen. It is all a matter of interest and attention, and the details depend upon these principles. In view of the facts just stated, it will be seen that the remedy for poor hearing and poor memory of things heard is to be found in the use of the will in the direction of voluntary attention and interest. So true is this that some authorities go so far as to claim that many cases of slight deafness are really but the result of lack of attention and concentration on the part of the person so troubled. There are but few persons who have not had the experience of listening to some bore, whose words were distinctly heard, but the meaning of which was entirely lost because of inattention and lack of interest. One researcher summed the matter up with these words: "In hearing, we must distinguish between two different points: the audible sensation as it is developed without any intellectual interference, and the conception which we form in consequence of that sensation. The reason that many people do not remember things that they have heard is simply because they have not listened properly. Poor listening is far more common than one would suppose at first. A little self-examination will reveal to you the fact that you likely have fallen into the bad habit of inattention. One cannot listen to everything, of course. It would not be advisable. But one should acquire the habit of either really listening or else refusing to listen at all. In order to reacquire your lost habit of proper listening, you must exercise voluntary attention and develop interest. The following suggestions might be useful in that direction. Try to memorize words that are spoken to you in conversation, a few sentences or even one at a time. You will find that the effort made to fasten the sentence on your memory will result in a concentration of attention on the words of the speaker. Do the same thing when you are listening to a newscaster, actor, or lecturer. Pick out the first sentence for memorizing, and make up your mind that your memory will be as wax to receive the impression, and as steel to retain it. Listen to the stray scraps of conversation that come to your ears while walking on the street, and try to memorize a sentence or two, as if you were to repeat it later in the day. Study the various tones, expressions, and inflections in the voices of persons speaking to you. You will find this task most interesting and helpful. You will be surprised at the details that such analysis will reveal. Listen to the footsteps of different persons and endeavor to distinguish between them. Each has its own peculiarities. Get someone to read a line or two of poetry or prose to you, and then try to remember it. A little practice of this kind will greatly develop your power of voluntary attention to sounds and spoken words. But above everything else, practice repeating the words and sounds that you have memorized, so far as is possible. For by doing so, you will get the mind into the habit of taking an interest in sound impressions. In this way, you not only improve your sense of hearing, but also the faculty of remembering. If you will analyze and boil down these suggestions, you will find that the gist of the whole matter is that one should actually use, employ, and exercise the mental faculty of hearing, actively and intelligently. Nature has a way of putting to sleep or atrophying any faculty that is not used or exercised, and also of encouraging, developing, and strengthening any faculty that is properly employed and exercised. In this you have the secret. Use it. If you will listen well, you will hear well, and remember well that which you have heard. And the more you remember, the greater your chances of success in any endeavor. The Inspirational Living podcast is a production of The Living Hour. For free transcripts of our podcast, please go to livinghour.org. If you enjoy our podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which will ensure that we can continue our podcast for years to come. To become a patron, please visit patreon.com. That's patreon.com. Simply do a quick search for the Inspirational Living Podcast at patreon.com to find our Patreon page and learn more, including the free gifts we offer to every patron. Subscribe to our free podcast today at the iTunes Store, or at Google Play, or at Stitcher.com. Thank you for listening. We look forward to being with you next time. Welcome to the Inspirational Living Podcast. Transform your life in 30 days with the Majesty Program. Our unique auto-suggestion sound method meditation will help you achieve success in every area of your personal and professional life. Learn more at livinghour.org/majesty. To get 30% off the $11.99 purchase price, use the coupon code INSPIRATION. Today's podcast has been edited and adapted from The Hindu Yogi Science of Breath by William Walker Atkinson, published in 1903. If you have any trouble remembering the breathing exercises covered in today's podcast, remember that you can read the full transcript for free at our website, livinghour.org. To breathe is to live, and without breath there is no life. Not only are we dependent upon breath for life and health, but all animal life must breathe to live, and plant life is likewise dependent upon the air for continued existence. The newborn baby draws in a long, deep breath, retains it for a moment to extract from it its life-giving properties, and then exhales it in a long wail, and lo, its life upon earth has begun. The old senior gives a faint gasp, ceases to breathe, and life is over. From the first faint breath of the infant to the last gasp of the dying grandparent, it is one long story of continued breathing. Life is but a series of breaths. Breathing may be considered the most important of all the functions of the body, for indeed all the other functions depend upon it. A person may exist some time without eating, a shorter time without drinking, but without breathing their existence may be measured by a few minutes. And not only are we dependent upon breath for life, but we are largely dependent upon correct habits of breathing for continued vitality and freedom from disease. An intelligent control of our breathing power will lengthen our days upon earth by giving us increased vitality and powers of resistance. On the other hand, unintelligent and careless breathing will tend to shorten our days by decreasing our vitality and laying us open to disease. Humankind in its normal state had no need of instruction in breathing. Like the lower animals and the child, we breathed naturally and properly, as nature intended us to do. But civilization has changed us in this and other respects. We have contracted improper methods and attitudes of walking, standing, and sitting, which have robbed us of our birthright of natural and correct breathing. We have paid a high price for civilization. One of the first lessons in the yogi science of breath is to learn how to breathe through the nostrils and to overcome the common practice of mouth breathing. The organs of breathing have their only protective apparatus, filter or dust catcher, in the nostrils. When the breath is taken through the mouth, there is nothing from mouth to lungs to strain the air, or to catch the dust and other foreign matter in the air. From mouth to lungs, the dirt or impure substance has a clear track, and the entire respiratory system is unprotected. And moreover, such incorrect breathing admits, during the winter time, cold air to the organs, thereby injuring them. Inflammation of the respiratory organs often results from the inhalation of cold air through the mouth. The person who breathes through the mouth at night always awakens with a parched feeling in the mouth and a dryness in the throat. They are violating one of nature's laws and sowing the seeds of disease. To get back in tune with nature and healthy methods of breathing, let's have a look at several breathing exercises, known as pranayama, which have been practiced for centuries by the Hindu yogi masters of India. The yogi cleansing breath is a favorite form of breathing which yogis practice when they feel the necessity of cleansing the lungs. This cleansing breath ventilates the lungs, stimulates the cells, and gives a general tone to the respiratory organs, and is conducive to their general healthy condition. Besides this effect, it is found to greatly refresh the entire system. Professional speakers, singers, etc. will find this breath especially restful after having tired the respiratory organs. Step 1. Inhale a complete breath. Step 2. Retain the air a few seconds. Step 3. Pucker up the lips as if for a whistle, but do not swell out the cheeks. Then exhale a little air through the opening with considerable vigor. Then stop for a moment, retaining the air, and then exhale a little more air. Repeat until the air is completely exhaled. Remember that considerable energy is to be used in exhaling the air through the opening in the lips. Practice this exercise until it can be performed naturally and easily. You will find it quite refreshing when you are tired and generally used up. Go ahead and try it out, and I'm sure you will be convinced of its benefits. Now let's move on to the nerve vitalizing breath. This is an exercise well known to the yogis, who consider it one of the strongest nerve stimulants and invigorants known to humankind. Its purpose is to stimulate the nervous system and to develop nerve force, energy, and vitality. This exercise brings a stimulating pressure to bear on important nerve centers, which in turn stimulates and energizes the entire nervous system and sends an increased flow of nerve force to all parts of the body. Step 1. Stand erect. Step 2. Inhale a complete breath and hold it in. Step 3. Extend the arms straight in front of you, letting them be somewhat limp and relaxed, with only sufficient force to hold them out. Step 4. Slowly draw the hands back toward the shoulders, gradually contracting the muscles and putting force into them, so that when they reach the shoulders, the fists will be so tightly clenched that a tremulous motion is felt. Step 5. Then, keeping the muscles tense, push the fists slowly out, and then draw them back rapidly, still tense, several times. Step 6. Exhale vigorously through the mouth. Step 7. Practice the cleansing breath. The efficiency of this exercise depends greatly upon the speed of the drawing back of the fists and the tension of the muscles, and of course, upon the full lungs. This exercise must be tried to be appreciated. It is without equal as a quick vitality booster. Our next exercise is the vocal breath, which is used to develop the voice. The yogis are noted for their wonderful voices, which are strong, smooth, and clear, and have a wonderful trumpet-like carrying power. Their practice of this particular form of breathing exercise has resulted in rendering their voices soft, beautiful, and flexible, imparting to it that indescribable, peculiar, floating quality, combined with great power. To the student who practices it faithfully, the exercise that follows will, in time, impart the above-mentioned qualities, or what is called the yogi voice. It is to be understood, of course, that this form of breath is to be used only as an occasional exercise, and not as a regular form of breathing. Step 1. Inhale a complete breath, very slowly but steadily, through the nostrils, taking as much time as possible in the inhalation. Step 2. Retain the breath for a few seconds. Step 3. Expel the air vigorously in one great breath through a wide open mouth. Step 4. Rest the lungs by performing the cleansing breath exercise described earlier. Without going deeply into the yogi theories of sound production in speaking and singing, I wish to say that experience has taught them that the timbre, quality, and power of a voice depends not alone upon the vocal organs in the throat, but that the facial muscles, etc., have much to do with the matter. Some people with large chests produce but a poor tone, while others with comparatively small chests produce tones of amazing strength and quality. Here is an interesting experiment worth trying. Stand before a glass and pucker up your mouth and whistle, and note the shape of your mouth and the general expression of your face. Then sing or speak as you do naturally, and see the difference. Then start to whistle again for a few seconds, and then without changing the position of your lips or face, sing a few notes and notice what a vibrant, resonant, clear, and beautiful tone is produced. If you are looking for an alternative to caffeine for a mental boost, then you will want to pay special attention to the next breathing exercise, which the yogis use for stimulating the brain, producing clear thinking and reasoning. It has a wonderful effect in clearing the brain and nervous system, and those engaged in mental work will find it most useful, both in enabling them to do better work and also as a means of refreshing the mind and clearing it after arduous mental labor. Step 1. Sit in an erect posture, keeping the spinal column straight and the eyes well to the front, letting the hands rest on the upper part of the legs. Step 2. Breathe rhythmically, but instead of breathing through both nostrils as in ordinary exercises, press the left nostril closed with the thumb and inhale through the right nostril. Then remove the thumb and close the right nostril with the finger, and then exhale through the left nostril. Then, without changing the fingers, inhale through the left nostril, and changing fingers, exhale through the right. Then inhale through the right and exhale through the left, and so on, alternating nostrils as I've just mentioned, closing the unused nostril with the thumb or forefinger. This is one of the oldest forms of yogi breathing and is quite important, valuable, and well worthy of acquirement. Now let's discuss a breathing exercise which you can incorporate into your daily walks, making them even more relaxing, invigorating, and restorative. Step 1. Walk with head up, chin drawn slightly in, shoulders back, and with a measured step. Step 2. Inhale a complete breath, counting mentally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One count to each step, making the inhalation extend over the 8 counts. Step 3. Exhale slowly through the nostrils, counting as before 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One count to each step. Step 4. Rest between breaths, continuing walking and counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One count to each step. Step 5. Repeat until you begin to feel tired. Then rest for a while and resume at your pleasure. Some yogis vary this exercise by retaining the breath during a 1, 2, 3, 4 count, and then exhale in an 8-step count. Practice whichever plan seems most agreeable to you. Lastly, I would like to talk with you about breathing and its relationship to the soul. The real self is not your body or even your mind. These things are but a part of your personality, the lesser self. The real self is independent of the body, which it inhabits, and is even independent of the mechanism of the mind, which it uses as an instrument. The real self is a drop from the divine ocean and is eternal and indestructible. It cannot die or be annihilated, and no matter what becomes of the body, the real self still exists. It is the soul, and it manifests itself in your individuality. Do not think of your soul as a thing apart from you, for you are the soul, and the body is the unreal and transitory part of you, which is changing in material every day, and which you will someday discard. You have the power to become conscious of the reality of the soul and its independence of the body. The yogi plan for developing this power is by meditation upon the real self or soul, accompanied by rhythmic breathing. The following exercise is the simplest form to use. Place your body in a relaxed, reclining position. Breathe rhythmically and meditate upon the real self, thinking of yourself as an entity independent of the body, although inhabiting it and being able to leave it at will. Think of yourself not as the body, but as a spirit, and of your body as but a shell, useful and comfortable, but not a part of the real you. Think of yourself as an independent being, using the body only as a convenience. While meditating, ignore the body entirely, and you will find that you will often become almost entirely unconscious of it, and will seem to be out of the body, to which you may return when you are through with the exercise. You now understand the basics of several yogi breathing methods, which if persisted in will not only improve your health and well-being, but give you a wonderful sense of the reality of the soul, and make you seem almost independent of the body. A sense of immortality will often come with your increased consciousness, and you will begin to show signs of spiritual development, which will be noticeable to yourself and others. But you must not allow yourself to live too much in the upper regions, or to despise your body, for you are here on this plane for a purpose, and you must not neglect your opportunity to gain the experiences necessary to round out your true self, nor must you fail to respect your body, which is the temple of the Spirit. The Inspirational Living podcast is a production of The Living Hour, brought to you in part by the kind support of listeners like you. You can become a patron of our podcast for as little as $1 a month. To learn more, please visit livinghour.org/sponsor. Thanks for listening. I look forward to talking with you next time.